Welcome to No Rules Review with your host, Ethan.
Hey everybody, Ethan Malay here, and today we're talking about Falling Sky, the Gallic Revolt against Caesar by Volko and Andro Rumke. It is the sixth of the Coin series of games, Coin being a shortening of counterinsurgency, and this one is unique because this is set in ancient times. This is set in Caesar's pacification of Gaul, and the conquering of the Gallic tribes there. Like I said, this is for 1 to 4 players, so in typical Coin fashion, you can play it solo with 3 automated players. You can play it with anything up to 4, with any missing players automated, or people playing multiple factions. So in this game, you have the Romans, you have the Belgica, basically the Belgians, you have the Aedui, which are a Gallic tribe that is, sympathetic to the Romans, or allied with the Romans. And then you have the Arverni, which is a Gallic tribe that is opposed to Roman occupation. And in typical Coin fashion, each one of these factions has a totally unique victory condition that really drives player interaction. The Romans want Gaul pacified. They want no opposition to them. They want tribes either allied with them or dispersed. They literally go in and just slaughter tribes to, better dead than against us, I guess was the philosophy. And it works. Now, of course, as you might imagine, slaughtering tribes tends to make remaining living people angry at the Romans. That's not always their best option. The Aedui don't necessarily want the Romans to rule Gaul, but they want to make sure that they're sort of the most influential Gallic tribe when it comes time to, sort of reformat the way that Gaul is run. So they don't want to see the Romans get too in control, but they want to make sure that nobody drives the Romans out, because on their own, they're not all that powerful. They need the Romans to sort of come in and rough people up for them. The Belgica are sort of unique. They don't give a crap about much. They just want Belgium to be theirs. They want to control what's theirs and get everybody else out. And then you got the Arverni, who do not want the Romans there, and their victory condition is basically just killing Roman legions. Their victory condition is linked to the number of legions that are dead or off the map. So they run around and they basically just want to murder Romans. And those tones of war, now of course certainly all the Coin games tend to be war-based in their theme. But this one's unique in that in this one, at least for the Romans and the Arverni, you get this building up these big armies and sort of moving across the map towards each other and fighting. A lot of Coin games, you have many of the factions sort of dispersed and doing subterfuge and sort of poking from behind. In this, you get these 2 factions, at least with these really big armies. The Belgica can form their own armies, but they're really not the same massive marching across the map. They just drive the Romans out. And the Aedui just sort of do their own thing. Their victory condition is actually having more tribes allied with them than anybody else. So, like I said, they want to have the most political influence over Gaul. This is also unique in the Coin series in that there is a 5th faction. There's not room for a 5th player, though, but there is a Germanic faction that the Belgica player can control at times and sort of treat it like they're an extension of them because they're brothers. But that faction will also just rampage on its own every winter being the scoring rounds in the game. So you get this really neat dynamic of 2 factions building up these big forces and just sort of slamming into each other. One faction just sort of trying to mind its own business, and the other faction sort of sneaking around in the shadows trying to build up support for itself. There are also leaders in this, which have not been in many of the other Coins. I mean, technically, the Liberty or Death, the American Revolution one did have, or the American Insurrection does have leaders, and they function sort of in a similar manner. You have leaders. There's Caesar for the Romans, Vercingetorix for the Arverni, and Ambiorix for the Belgica. And when they're around, their soldiers are a lot more effective, but they can't be everywhere at once, and they can die. So you have to be careful with where you move them. In true Coin fashion, the Romans are incredibly powerful. The legionnaires can just kill everything, but they are limited. And as they die, Caesar loses some of his ability to bring in more, because Caesar, the Roman player, also has to deal with the Senate back home in Rome. And the Senate starts sort of supporting him, and it can shift one way or the other. It can go to adulation, and they give him all kinds of legions because they love what he's doing for the glory of Rome, or they can go the opposite way and begin to be outright hostile towards Caesar's ambitions and call legions back home to Rome. So the Roman player has to deal with trying to make sure, I mean, this is true of a lot of the counterinsurgency factions in the other coin games. Too many legionaries dying is not a good thing. Not only because that's the Arverni victory condition, but it makes the Roman player's life more difficult. There are also some events that can change political things back in Rome, which can mess with the Roman player. The Arverni, the faction led by Vercingetorix that just wants the Romans gone, can rally a lot. They can rally a lot of warriors and move them around, and they can do quite a bit of damage, but they do die a lot easier than the Roman legionnaires do. So they sort of want to, in true, antiquity tactical fashion, they want to sort of lie in wait and then attack when the numbers are in their favor and try to do as much damage as they can. The Belgica are really good if they can catch the Romans unaware. If they can ambush them, they can do a lot of damage. Same with the Germanic tribes when they begin to rampage. And the Aedui sort of buy their way. They can sort of bribe opposing factions, tribes, allied tribes, and tribesmen to join their side. So each person is really playing their own unique game, and just like all the other coin games, you have your pamphlet that tells you everything you can do, everything the other players can do, and what everybody's victory conditions are, and it really works. There is a, if you look, and I should be having some clips showing, there is a flow chart for battles, because battles are a little more complicated in this game than they are in the other coin games. Again, barring Liberty or Death, the American Insurrection. You follow this flow chart, which looks complicated, but it's very easy to follow, to decide how many people die in each round of combat, and then it can repeat, or people can retreat. There is the same wonderful coin bot flow chart you can use to have each one of the factions be controlled by basically a computer. And those work pretty well. It's nice because on the cards there's even stuff printed that'll tell you when they always ignore an event, when they take an event, so that's nice. You don't have to do as much referencing back into the book as you flip over an event card. This is probably my favorite of the coin games. Now granted, yeah, you can see them all here. I've played these four. I've yet to play Fire in the Lake because I've heard Fire in the Lake's the most complicated. That'll be the next one I get played, but I like this one the best. I like, probably because of the theme. The Roman theme really does it for me. If you are looking to get into the coin games, I would suggest this or Cuba Libre. I'd say they're both about equally easy to understand. Discipline isn't very bad either. These two are a little more complicated, but I really, really enjoyed Falling Sky, the Gallic Revolt against Caesar. And like I said with my Cuba Libre review, it's great. These games are great because of the history they teach. Now, I've always been a fan of Roman history, and while I've never read Caesar's commentaries of his invasion of Gaul, this game really did a lot to sort of teach me more than I knew about the time period. You really get the sense when you're playing the Gallic tribes of the sense of doom and how these massive, well-equipped Romans are marching up into Gaul, but if you hold together, they really can't overcome you. And as Caesar, you realize you got to try to play people off of each other. And if you're the Aedui, you really have a unique game where you're trying to appease the Romans because you are very influential in them surviving every winter. So you got to keep them around, but you really don't want them getting too strong. But you can't just flat out betray them because they can crush you. So a great coin game, a great all-around game, and I'll say what I said with Cuba Libre. If you think coin game equals war game, please don't. This is no different than any other 4-player Euro where you're trying to do, it's just an asymmetrical Euro game dressed up in a war game, and they are great. All of the coin games are. If you like what you saw today, share, like, subscribe, comment. This has been Ethan Malay with another No Rules review, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye now.
This has been another No Rules review by Ethan Malay. If you enjoyed this video, consider sharing, commenting, liking, and most importantly, subscribing. For this and other great games, join us over on BoardGameGeek.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.